because you're still here, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So even though like it was bad and, you know, and I was, you know, I would thrive by myself. I would not have like any issues or any problems, but it's like,
You learn to figure it out, to cope on your
you
own.
learn to figure it out. And it's
Mm-hmm.
crazy because it's like, even in my romantic relationship, I was still like operating on my own by myself. And this person was literally just there and like not pulling their weight. And like, and I let them do that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And instead of being like, I deserve better, let me go somewhere else, I was just like, well, at least they're still here. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right,
even if
right.
they treat you bad, you're just like, well, they haven't left. And even though they're abusing you, you're still like, well, they left, but they came back. You know what I mean? Just like accepting those breadcrumbs and really not
Right.
like realizing that, you know, that like, you know, this is not a great person for me and I shouldn't be with this person. Instead of thinking like, you know, thinking
Right.
like that and really realizing that you have a choice in the matter, like
Right.
for me, like I got complacent with,
Yeah.
oh well, they're here. You know what I mean? Like I got
Mm-hmm.
somebody, like, and
Mm-hmm.
that was good enough for me, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But after a while, when you feel unseen and you feel neglected, like you find yourself just kind of, you know, turning into a shell of yourself because your needs are not being wanted. I
Yeah.
mean, your you know, your needs are not being expressed, and not only are they, and even if they are
Exactly.
expressed, they're being like dismissed.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Let me
Yeah.
reset. Hey, everyone. Welcome a little bit. We are talking about relationships and dating and the partners we attract, and based on our sibling age. Well, what is it? Sibling dynamic.
Yeah.
Um, and so understanding that and trying to see, who you attract and why that might be based off of. And my friend Mariana and I, um, sorry, Mariana. Why did I say
Yeah.
Mariana? I
You
have
got it.
another
It's
friend,
okay.
Mariana. We're both in a large family, and as some of you know, I'm the youngest girl in a large family of seven altogether, but I have six other siblings. And hello. And so anyways, talking about that, we're trying to figure out the partners we attract and why that might be. Um, and so I think, like, similar to what you're just saying, just to pick it up, like the moment you realize the dynamic you play, the role you are set up in, whether you have whether you don't have any control in it, it's just kind of what it is. But that awareness helps you realize, like, who am I attracting, and what is it that I need, what is it that I bring to the table, all of that full awareness. So I think yeah, and building off of that, I think, like, us as women, learning, like, when to really say no, like when to really, like, how to like, this big awareness. This was like a big light bulb moment for me today. I was like, whoa, like, okay, I think some of my past partners I've attracted, either they're an older sibling and they have a lot of masculine energy. Where does that play in, and how do I fit into that role? And I think I've been comfortable with bringing a lot of passion, excitement. And I was just telling her, like, at an early age, the moment I finished college, like, I was ready to travel. I was ready to explore myself. I was ready to just worry about me and do the things I wanted to do. But I think that was at the price of my siblings, who paved that way for me. And I didn't have that responsibility of my parents expecting me to necessarily stay home and assist them or any of those things. Like, I was off getting to be me, which was both a blessing. And but with that comes, like, maybe having an opposite partner. So we're talking about how opposites attract, and having a partner that would maybe helps ground me and all these other components. So lots of awareness happening today. But
Yeah.
Mariana, like, I know, with a live session and having to repeat a few things is.
Yeah. So how did it play out for you? Okay, like, so you said you have, you know, you're one of six. So are those both from like your mom and dad? Like, are they married? Like, how is like that dynamic as well?
Yeah. I mean, large family. So, like, my four sisters. My oldest was for my dad's first marriage, but everyone else was with with my mom and dad. And so my oldest sister was already built-in sibling from all along. So for me, it didn't really matter. I didn't notice it any different. And we were raised to not even see any of that. And so definitely grew up as like the baby. But then also having a younger brother.
Yeah. And that's a weird dynamic for me, because like I'm from like a nuclear family, and like most Burundians I know from our community, they really harp on death to you part. Like y'all, through like thick and thin and everything. So the only siblings that I personally have ever known are the ones from like my mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't even know how I would feel to have like a bonus sibling. And that's something that I'm like even wrestling with now as an adult, because like, I have my two boys and I'm not with their father, but potentially when I get with someone else, whoever God has, set out for me to be with, that is a possibility. And that's like going to be another dynamic for me. I'm going to have to like get into, and that's uncharted territory for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not something I've ever had to think about. It's not something I ever had to consider. Like, that's all
the
I
blended
know.
family situation.
That's all I've known. Yeah. So that's, I mean, that's even like scarier for me. You know what I mean? Like, because I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to have, like a bonus sibling and like.
I mean, I think one of the things that, sorry to cut you off. One of the things that my mom was very like intentional about was not even focusing on that, raising all of us as a whole, or all, like, I don't even, half of us didn't know we had a half sister for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that served us well, because you don't want to have to worry about any of those dynamics or favoritism or any of those things. I mean, I knew I didn't. And so I think that might be something that, like, to just be all inclusive. And that's what I think has worked for a lot of other mixed families or mixed households, just as best as you can. But that is definitely not an easy situation to navigate, but you do the best you can ultimately in everything that you do. So yeah. But I don't know, bringing it back to, I think, our earlier conversation, we've touched points on like being a gatekeeper of our lives, how to be a great keeper of our individual, like it's pretty much the same thing as sharing your energy, like knowing who's holding space, and why do you give this person your time if you're not happy, if you're not having your needs met. But it takes that awareness to really know, like, I'm not being a good gatekeeper. Straight up being honest, like, I'm not being a gatekeeper of my life, of my energy, of my time. And the moment you have that realization, then how can you set those boundaries?
And that's so, go ahead.
No, exactly. I think women, we were talking about that, women in general, we learned that lesson late in life sometimes.
And women are like, big for that, of like, neglecting their needs, because I feel like society a lot of times like tells you like you are what your role is. You know what I mean? Like, you are a mom, so you feel like you have to like live up to that, or like that becomes your identity. And that's really dangerous, especially like if you haven't formed your own identity, and if you don't know it, like all of a sudden you become all these things to other people, and you're constantly giving and pouring, and then you feel guilty if you're not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, you feel less than.
Exactly. And I think for one of the great insights I learned, and that I hope to imply in my life when I become a mom, is that the dynamic of, okay, obviously a mother is one that's all giving to their children, community, bring a lot of that feminine, divine feminine energy that gathers people, that is the loving space, nurturing. But when it gets too much, when it becomes a toxic place, right, your whole identity fades away and your responsibilities, you no longer really get to do the things that you want. So really being able to hold those boundaries, even once you become a mom, once you're involved into the community, that's so critical, because so many women or moms really like that's a very blurred line. And of course this child is depending on you, of course this household and things, but you play a role just like everyone else. And in fact, moms have to hold boundaries far more than maybe other members of the family, because it's the glue that keeps it all together. And it's so critical to be able to nourish yourself, whether that is, you know, your alone time, your activities, your interests, your hobbies, and so you can really continue to show up lovingly and give from your full cup. Otherwise, you'll be that depleted, you know, low energy, and it's really hard to be able to it's like it gets in that territory of that toxic mom, or I don't know if they call it, what they call it is that, but you know what I mean, like,
yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, like, or even we could say like toxic like parents, like they don't even know that, you know, they're being toxic, right? Because they think that I'm constantly giving and giving and giving to you, and they're like expecting you to be like grateful, but it's like that's what I speak so much on, you know, just being intentional about, you know, just who you are and letting people know that, you know, you have needs too, right? You
right,
have things that you need to do for yourself, and you need to, you know, take care of yourself and make sure
right,
that you're being, you know, you're being honored as well as a mother, and that's a space that you have to take for yourself.
right,
So, and that's one of those things that kind of like leads you to being toxic unintentionally, right? Because you mean
unintentional.
well, you're trying to
Yeah.
do all these things for all these
Yes.
people, and you
Yes.
become that mom that, oh, I'm always doing dishes, why doesn't anybody do anything around here, you know what I mean? But when you
Right.
never ask,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, you don't ask for help, but you don't take any time for yourself, and you're always there for people, and you're just feeling like, oh, nobody appreciates me. And then, like, the rest of your family, they start seeing you as, like, just a person who's just, like, grumpy or in a bad mood, or, like, someone they don't even want to be around.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone said toxic in the Burundi community. What is that?
What is that? Right? Yeah. And
no, it's so true.
And we're so big, like, in that in our community, it there's so much toxicity, like, as Shedrack is saying, and I know him like really well, we're childhood friends. In our community, like it's you know, it's like toxic positivity, right? Like that's a real thing.
That's a
That's a
real
real
thing.
thing. Yeah, and we're so big for that in our community, because it's like, yes, we do have a lot of beautiful things about our community, like the fact that we have very strong like family values. Like, your family is your number one source of everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Everything, you know, and it's a beautiful thing, but you can also get, you know, resentful because like nobody's noticing, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm
Exactly.
doing all these things, why is nobody praising me, why is nobody, you know, making me feel good for it, and things like that. And that's a hard conversation for us, because we're like, the way I grew up, we like I remember like even growing up, my mom like really taught me to be poised. And, you know, I feel like we put so much like expectations on the women. You have to cook, you have to clean, you have to take care of the children, you have to, you know, take care of your husband. He gets his plate first. Like, you're reduced to the roles that you're playing in the family.
Right.
You know,
and
that's
when you go to other
widely
people's
acceptable.
homes, you play that role there too. It's
You
like,
play that role there too, exactly.
I'm a guest. Can I be a guest? I want to be served.
Yeah. And that was hard for me, because even like coming to America and realizing like we're not in Burundi anymore. You know what I mean? Like, they're not gonna give you the same treatment. Like, if you go like in our community, for example, if you go visit someone's house, they're going to offer you something to drink. They're going to feed you. You know what I mean? Like, that's a normal thing. So when people come to my house, I'm like, let's get you some food. Let's get you something to drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's a part of who we are. But like, when you are in a foreign land, and there's different, you know, rules and other things that they follow, like, you really feel a certain kind of way when that's not being like offered to you, right? Because that's what you're used to.
Right.
You know?
No, it reminds me of two things.
Yeah.
Two recent shows I saw. Like, I was watching the Hassan Minaj Patriotic Act, and he was talking about, like, actually his homecoming one, where early on, where he was at this American girl's house, and the parents were asking him, like, what do you want to do? And he was like, I've never been asked that before.
Yeah.
I don't know. And realizing that. And to be given that space to just be was so valuable. And then recent, like, another point about what we're talking about with, like, with households and playing the role that you play. Like when you're not, I mean, at first you do it to be courteous. At first you do it for like being hospitable
Yeah.
and things, but it becomes hard to maintain because you're not being your authentic self. And so it's just like, you maybe not want to have that person over. Or I think
Yeah.
one personal experience I could use, like in Peace Corps, they told us, everyone would tell this, to be respectful, you have to wear the wrap, like all, win the village all the time. And so of course we did it early on and things, but I remember it was another volunteer that told us, if you're not a fan of wearing the wrap, don't wear the wrap, because just be your authentic self, because then you're going to have them fooled thinking you're this whole other person. You want to be all traditional and everything else when you're not. And it's like, oh, thank you. That just liberated me. Like, because, the days that it's hot, I'm doing laundry outside or whatever, I'm like, I'm going to wear pants. I'm going to wear shorts. Like, I'm going to adjust as necessary and be my true myself. Because otherwise, you're trying way too hard to fit in. And you're going to run out of gas to like sustain that. So.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that also goes into the conversation about boundaries. Right. And I think
Exactly.
I was, I think when I was learning more about like relationship dynamics and people, like that was the first time I ever even like heard of the word as it
Boundaries.
relates to relationships. You think of boundaries and you're just like, okay, the boundaries on the interstate that keep you from, going off of a bridge
Right. Or like
when you're
bowling, when you go
driving. You know what
bowling,
I
you got
mean?
those lanes, like.
Yeah, like physical boundaries
Right.
around you and stuff like that. But
Right.
emotional boundaries, like that was new for me. Like, what you mean to say? Like, I have a say and I have a choice, and
Right.
I don't have to do all these things that people are expecting of me if I
Yeah.
don't want to. Like, that was like mind blowing. You know?
Cool moment for sure. Yeah. And like I think once you learn to exchange energy, it's because it's kind of the same thing. Like when you're true to yourself, you allow others to also be true to themselves, because they're like, well, okay, well, she was being her true self, and so you give people the freedom, the permission to like also be true to themselves and speak their mind and hold their boundaries, and it just
Yeah.
allows us all to have that authentic, intentional interaction, a more sustainable way. So they're like, all right, well, if you know who you're dealing with. And that applies the same way in romantic relationships, right? Like sometimes we portray to be one thing, and then after 3 months or so, whatever, and you're like, I no longer want to do that. Or maybe
Yeah.
the guy like wants to open the door early on and seem all kind of gentleman like, and then
Yeah.
he stops doing that. Or yeah, I think
That's
that's.
true.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of boundaries too, right? So like as women, as we show up in these relationships and we see a guy who does that in the beginning, like, but that's a I don't know word, like, that's an indication for you to enforce your boundaries. You know what I mean? It's like there's all these great opportunities for you to go and insert yourself, because it's like if a guy does that and then the first time you notice that they're not doing it, call them out on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if they're not gonna do it,
Yeah.
just leave. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Don't
Yeah.
see them for a while. Like, you have to learn how to establish your boundaries. Like that's like another part that goes into it, right?
True.
And you're letting that person know, like, that you're crossing a boundary for me. You're saying, you're showing me that this is a person that you were, and all of a sudden, like, you want to switch up now.
You're right.
Like, now
What are
you're
we doing?
crossing my boundary.
Switcheroo? Like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
true. I think I saw this one video where it was a couple, and I think she always prepares the food traditionally, and she lets him eat first, or like they always eat together, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so this time she was trying to play a prank, and she started eating before him.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen
Yeah, I've
that? Where he was just like, he just left. He just left and walked out.
Yeah.
Which he was like, is this a new thing now? Like, just like, I think the things you're so used to, you build that relationship, and you learn customs from one another, and like
Yeah.
you building that relationship, that day-to-day things. And so, yeah, I think the moment that you find your partner not playing the role that say they were going to play, or that you expect them to play, it's up to you to speak up and address it, or have a conversation about it. I think about that. That sounds a bit more like in a loving way, obviously.
Right, right. And it's always important to, really value, and that helps you like really value like what your person is doing for you, because like they don't have to. And I feel like, society, especially like, these societies that are more like closer to like third world, or the people who have these traditions where yes, the woman has to do these things. And I feel like sometimes the men are, you know or it could be the other way around, where like the man is taught to provide and he provides all the time. Like, you can easily take them for granted, right? Because like all of a sudden, like that's become their role, and you're expecting them to do that,
Right.
all the time. You know
Right.
what I mean? So it's like if they stop doing that, like that's kind of like when you notice like how important that is, like for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And
yeah,
to appreciate what you have, because sometimes I was just, when you said that, it reminds me of like how people might portray on social media or something could be very different, very opposite to how they actually are in their day-to-day lives.
yeah,
And which is the different angles that we all play, right? We all have different roles, and it sometimes, I think that reminds me of like there's a, so someone had talked about like the way a diamond shines
mm-hmm.
is different to each angle, to each view. And there was this book called Edge where she had given advice where someone was talking about like, I'm going to go for an interview, a job interview, and the advice that this person received was like, just be yourself, just be yourself. And how she was saying how that's the worst advice, because which version of yourself are you going to be? Which version?
Yeah,
Which one? Like the one you are with your partner, the one you are with your siblings, or which one? And we're complicated beings. There's many different facets and characteristics of us, and knowing, which one you project is based on each circumstance at each place. And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that I don't know, you're portraying one thing, but it's just, I think once you understand that, you get to value that a bit more. So some things that you have at home with your partner, those sides of you isn't necessarily what you show to the world, what you show on social media. And that's okay. It's not meant to be that way.
yeah. That's very true. And in order, it's funny because people say that, but in order to be yourself, you have to know yourself.
You have to know yourself.
You have to
Exactly.
know yourself, and a lot of people don't know themselves.
Right. Right.
And they don't even know like who they are outside of like what they do for others or the role that they play. Like, and it's easy to say that when like that's easy to say if you know yourself, right? So it's like I know how I'm gonna show up, and like for example, like I know boundaries, and I know genuinely who I am. I know what to accept, what not to accept. Like it's easy for me to to show up as that person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because now I know myself, right? Like I know what I like, I know what I don't like, I know what I tolerate, I know what I won't tolerate. I know how to enforce things that I truly and strongly believe in, and also just knowing to also walk away from a person who is like crossing your boundaries, or who does not respect who you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's so big, because we can easily become like so enmeshed in other people and so needy, you know what I mean? And looking and seeking for that validation, where someone being there really validates you and it makes you feel like that's who you are. But that's not who you are.
Right.
What you are to other people is not who you it's not who you are.
Right.
You know what
Exactly.
I mean? It's like,
Right.
imagine if you were living on earth and no one was there, like how would you show up?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. It's very different than the different roles that you play. It's the same thing as like with your supervisor,
Yeah.
or as a mom, or with your partner or a sibling, like kind of full circle back to that sibling relationship we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, really understanding who you are is going to help you so much setting those boundaries and really navigating the territories of your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's why, like, whether doing therapy, because I mean that's the value, right? Like, why do you feel that way, or asking those like deep questions, sitting
Yeah.
with yourself to really understand that, then you're able to make that educated decision, or really like from a place of knowing. And I think that kind of goes back to one of our points that we're touching on, like listening to your intuition. What is your intuition, and when do you listen to that? Sometimes, like, similar thing with dating, we might make decisions from a headspace as far as like, this makes sense to be with this person. Sometimes from our heart place of like, I'm so obsessed, I love this person, I couldn't see myself with anyone, like from that, or from the intuition of knowing like this is the right partner for me. And intuition is so hard to explain because it's knowing without like facts or any other ways to really be able to explain it. So over the years, like I've been really working on listening to my intuition, listen to my inner voice, and it's been quite a journey, but a really worthwhile one. And I think some people are, I don't know, I was gonna say have better built-in relationships with their intuition, are very in tune than others, but it's always something that we all have and we can work through.
And a lot of times, like, we override our, intuition, because that's true. We all have it. And I feel like really your intuition knows you like better than you know yourself. You know what I mean? Isn't that crazy? Like your intuition knows things before you even know.
Right.
Like your intuition can pick up even like on a person's energy and can like tell you from up front if they're going to be trouble or not. You know what I mean? By like the sensations that you're feeling. You know what I mean? Like the
your
different
body. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like the body languages and the energies and the things that you're picking up from even just like meeting this person. You don't know them, but you have like a weird uneasy feeling about them.
Exactly.
But because like a lot of us come from a place of lack and a place of, it's so that validation seeking, it's bad. You know what I mean? That coming from that place of neediness and needing that validation, it will put you in a position where you are overriding your intuition, right? Because you have like this inner child that never got, certain needs that needed to be met. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And we find ourselves in compromising positions because we're looking for someone to, I don't know, like almost adopt us in a way, like almost like reparent us, re-nurture us, give us those things that we were looking for as a child. You know what I mean? So we end up overriding our intuition, and afterwards, you always come back, and it's like I knew that person was trouble. It's like afterwards, but it's because we're coming from a place of, just like being so needy and needing that validation, and coming from that place of not being fully and completely healed. We find ourselves, in those positions, or in places we shouldn't be, or with people that we shouldn't be with.
Exactly. When all along our intuition was speaking, telling us this is not right for you, you're like dismiss. So it's like the moments when we dismiss the red flags, right? And characteristics about somebody. I think I was gonna say, like, this over the summer, I had my intuition yell at me. I felt like a loud voice when I was pushing. I think I was pushing my body a little too far. Like I had just come back from a trip. Then I thought I was trying to be like all over the place. I was like, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna sign up for that. And I ended up having like an upset stomach and throwing up and things. And I was like, well, okay, I guess I'm taking care of myself. I'm like, to the point I finally sat down and I was like, I heard my inner voice like yelling at me. I was like, okay, like I probably need to slow down. I need to take it easy and just be so in tune. And that conversation, I think, as people say, that's like the Holy Ghost, your inner voice, your intuition, all of that is always talking, speaking to you, guiding you, nudging you in the right direction. But not many of us listen the way that we should. And the moment we like strengthen that and actually give our intuition, our inner voice space and time, and that's why like meditation is so important to really listen, then we can operate from a place of like just calmness, of knowing, and so much more. So
and especially like taking that time for yourself and being by yourself and loving that, like that's so big, because like a lot of times, like, it's very hard to hear your intuition when you are like in a place of chaos. You know what I mean? Because it'll scream at you, but it's like if the noise is loud, if everything in your external environment.
Survival mode.
So, absolutely.
And that makes like that same thing when we bring it back to like dating and things like it can be dating, it can be family environment, so many things of like I'm not from a place of creating my day-to-day things. It's happening to me.
Yeah.
I'm just experiencing it. And it's like, that was crazy. That was trauma. That was this. And like
Yeah.
really navigating those waters is not easy. And so, yeah, I think just as we said, all the reasons why to really give time to yourself and to listen to your intuition, to have that time with God, the universe, call it what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of like really finding yourself, and that's a big part of knowing yourself and learning yourself, is really like being by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And allowing sometimes those feelings and those thoughts to flow.
Right.
And I mean, that takes me back to, my previous relationship, where I felt like I didn't have, you know that time to myself to really do that. And it's like, if you don't spend time with yourself and your intuition is constantly telling you something or yelling at you, and you're constantly tuning it out, like eventually your intuition is just gonna pipe down. It's gonna quiet down. It's gonna get tired.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And then you're
Right.
not even gonna hear it anymore.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I think it reminds me of what, yeah, like from the Christian point, people say like the Holy Ghost will leave you if you don't listen, or something like that. And yeah, it's the same thing. Your inner voice will get tired of not being like, I'm trying to get you in the right place. I'm trying to get you where you deserve, where I know you want, but you keep dismissing all of that. And that's when you have chaos in your world. That's when you have disorder and all of those things. So
Yeah.
all the more reason to listen to that. Okay, I think our last point, our fourth point that we touched on and talked about is like how growing in love instead of falling in love. I think you have some points that I really, yeah, from the books and things you've read, conversations we've had, that I really want to touch on, because it's so easy to be like, oh, these two people fell in love, falling in love. Why are we falling?
That's a dangerous thing. Exactly. Imagine
Right.
yourself falling. It usually doesn't end well.
Exactly. I don't want to get bruised. I'm not trying to fall. Like,
You're not trying to fall. Yeah. And that crazy, wild, intense emotions of is really, it's back to that unhealed part of you.
right.
Because I was really, really big on that. You know what I mean? And it's so weird, like, because when you're coming from that unhealed place, like, I didn't have a real concept of really even time, right? Because
Right.
everything is going so fast, and you're neediness, that child inside of you is just grasping,
Exactly.
for whatever he can grasp and like hold on to. And then you kind of realize a little too late, like, this is not good. You know what I mean? And then you're stuck in a situation, and then your codependence kind of kicks in and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. So it's better to, it's better, obviously, to grow in love, because, like, everything that's worthwhile really takes time. It's like, imagine, like, having a garden, right? Like, it'd be weird if one day, if you're growing a flower, like, one day there's soil, next thing there's a whole fully bloomed flower. Like, you don't trust
I never
it.
thought about it that way. Yeah.
Right? Like, you're not gonna trust it. You're gonna think, like, is it fake? What's going on? Like, like,
this
you
is
don't
not
trust
real. That's when trust issues develop.
It's not real. But and growing in love is really, it's more beautiful than falling in love. Like, yes, falling in love is all this passion, whirlwind, lust, and it's all hot and heavy and exciting, but there's not, that's not sustainable, for the long run, especially if you're going to be in an intimate relationship with someone, and you want someone to go the long haul with. And I think a lot of us do. We're meant to do life together with other people and someone else, and you have this innate need to, of course, be, attached and grow with someone. But it's really important that you take your time, because, like, the truth will always reveal itself in due time. But it's like, where are you when that does show? That's when you find yourself dismissing the red flags, and and looking back and seeing all this stuff that that was there this whole time. But because you were falling so fast, like you didn't, you didn't see it.
Like you're
You
not in
know,
control. You're not in control of what's
you're
happening, how it's
yes,
happening. Things are happening to you. It's like if this person is trying to make you fall in love and they're
yes.
pursuing you in this all these attempts to get you to fall in love. It's like, I
But it
mean,
feels so good. It's like a drug. It's like a high. It's really like a drug, and like you
love
don't
is
want to come
yeah.
off of it.
Yeah.
And that's when you find yourself like looking for that other hit. You know what I mean? Because it's so high inside a peak,
Exactly.
right? Because
Ooh,
it's like a
interesting.
combination of this person love bombing you, throwing all this love at you,
Right,
this
right.
unhealed part of you that always wanted that, taking it in. So it's like they're feeling a cup that has a hole at the bottom, right? But you don't know that's the dynamic that's happening, that's taking place.
Right.
You just think, I found the best person ever. This is, love at first sight. This is,
right.
you think it's the most great and most amazing thing, but it's like, that's the most dangerous, and it's not going to sustain you. The relationship's not going to last. Ideally, are there people who, where that does work out for them? Some of the lucky ones. It's like, I feel like sometimes it's like hitting the lottery. The chances are very slim, but I know it happens, but for like a majority of us,
right,
like, that's,
yeah,
it's a catastrophe. Yeah.
it almost sounds like the way that I think maybe other people understand it,
Mm-hmm.
and I have understood it before in the past, is like when we're talking about, you have these traditional arranged marriage cases of the past, right? Where,
Yeah.
okay, these, you're brought together, we think, you're going to have a good life. This is good for, go for it. And you definitely have to grow in love there, because you didn't grow up, you didn't just love this person. They didn't do anything for you to love them just yet. You're just like, apparently you're a good match for me. And, apparently this will work. And so it's all like, it takes those factors of trusting, being patient, showing up, and actually doing the work to build and to grow in love. Versus the opposite, when this person is adamantly pursuing you, they are, sending you flowers, doing everything to, just to show their love and appreciation, but in a way that is so heavy at first, and something that might not be sustained down the road. Like, and it's, it definitely seems like those two opposite things. But I mean, like, of course, arranged marriage or matchmakers and all of those things, people have a negative perception on that. And I think we all do too, because maybe we might be accustomed to believing that, no, I need to feel that love bomb. I need to feel like I'm falling, because that's what I've seen in the movies. That's what I know. And if it's not that, then I don't want it.
Yeah. That's pretty true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like those. I mean, it's really important that, like, I love arranged marriages, and I think a good.
Wait, you said I love arranged marriages?
I like it. I really do, because, like, because they're most of the time they're from the same culture. You know what I mean? And the families vet each other.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not just you, and then there's like a whole community, like, in it. I feel like I see why those have like a higher chance of like being successful than not. You know what I mean? And then it's like two people who have willingly signed up to, be on this journey together, right? Like, and when you're dating, like, especially like in America and modern day dating, you never know what the person's intentions are, right? Because they never fully reveal them.
Right.
For you're looking for maybe a life partner. For them, they're looking for, the girl of the night or the girl of the week, things like that. You never know their true intentions. But like when you're in an arranged marriage and you are vetted and you guys both sign up and say, I'm choosing you to be my partner for life, and that ambiguity of it all is gone. Right. Like, I think it's a beautiful thing. I think commitment is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's really hard to find people that are going to be committed to you in life. You know what I mean? And especially without even knowing you. But they also get support, and they have those resources, and they have, other people. Not to say that they're perfect. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of, bad arranged marriages that didn't work out and things like that. But I can see, like, the beauty in it.
Yeah. Exactly. No,
Yeah.
I think it's so true. And like, once you realize, like, your partner is not going to be perfect, you're not going to be perfect, but it's the element of having commitment and wanting to work on this and work on yourself and work on each other. and do life together that sustains you
Yeah.
more than it is like, oh, the moment he stops doing that or this and that, like you start finding all the faults in your partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with
I
that
get
point, yeah, you're not going to get anywhere. So it reminds me of like the show, like Love at First Sight, and all of these, dating shows that have incorporated these things, and it works for some, but it depends on how the matchmakers do it and what criteria they use on it. And I think, and similar to what we talked about today, like understanding where you are in your sibling dynamic and what factors that may be, like a more holistic assessment of a person to
yeah.
really
Yeah.
understand them and help match them with the ideal partner. And sometimes you might resist that. You might be like, no, that's not what I need, or that's not
Yeah.
like, because maybe you don't know yourself yet. But if you know
Yeah.
yourself, you might be like, oh yeah, that they definitely have the skill sets I don't, and hopefully we can complement each other and build something that's going to sustain. Because not everybody comes with all the skills in their toolbox. Like you don't. No one does, actually. So
Yeah. And this goes also into gender roles, which I have found like a new love and respect for it, which I didn't before, right? Because society will have you feeling like you're your own person, you don't have to do nothing for nobody and things like that. But really humbling yourself and doing something for someone because like they need you to do that and being respected for it is so beautiful. You know what I mean? Like the thing about even just having that polarity in a relationship,
right,
of the man going out there providing and a woman appreciating their man for doing that and being able to hold that together, and then a woman coming in and she's not bringing in a paycheck, but she's making sure the home is like nice and clean and the husband got a place to come
and that's
home
priceless
to.
shit. You don't even need to put like, I think
That's
even
priceless. Exactly.
I think in economics evaluation, they realized during COVID how essential the women's role was, and because we don't have that quantified, and we can't put a price level on it, that's one of the challenges. So I think they're actually pushing to assess that more. But like, imagine like a good wife, a good household, and how much that sustains the husband to be able to do the work that he does. And as a family build together, it's like,
and I would argue that her job is hard, if not harder than her husband's, right? Because she has to do so many roles, right? She has to be the cook. She has to be the emotional support for the family. She's the one who's cleaning. Like, she's also, the main woman that he goes to for, safe sex, and she's bringing his children into the world. Like, imagine how much that would cost if you were outsourcing all these things, and this is one person who's doing it for you. So for me, it's hard. That's why, like, for me, I'm more into like traditional roles now, right? And that's the role like I would like to be into. But it's hard to do that and then ask a woman to bring 50% of the check. And I feel like that's why a lot of relationships are failing now, because like the woman's role is not only not being respected, but she's also being asked to continuously like give and contribute on top of everything she's already giving and contributing. And I think a lot of women now, they're seeing like, if I'm doing 90, if I'm doing everything that needs to be done to run the home, and I'm going outside and bringing 50% of the paycheck, and you're only just bringing in 50% of the check, and you don't want to do anything around the house, a lot of them are just like, I will just choose to just be single. I will choose to be a single mother. I will struggle and figure it out and stuff. But so it's good to have those roles and to know what everybody does, but to also appreciate it.
Right. No, I heard that where it was like there are some married women who are single mothers.
Mm-hmm. And that is the hard, girl.
Right.
Speak on that. That is the hardest thing to do, to be in, because it's like that's not what you signed up for.
Right.
But it's like the way society is raising men and raising women, like, and then all this the spirit of confusion being tossed into it,
right?
Where men are kind of being taught like, no, the man needs to, the woman needs to buy you a bunch of extravagant gifts as well. The woman needs to bring in 50% of the paycheck. The woman needs to do this. The woman needs to do that as well. I feel like that's kind of like, but they don't want to do like the extra stuff that the woman is doing. You know what I mean? So a lot of women feel like they're just being like taken advantage of. They don't feel like appreciated.
Right.
You know, so they leave, and it's like, and society is like pushing this, and it's like you need structure, you need standard, and a lot of times men are just better at that for us than the women are. You know what I mean? Like women can multitask and can do that, but guys are all about, you know, just having that order. You
Right.
know, and I've
Right.
seen that from people who are in these, you know, traditional like relationships. You know, everybody knows it's like going to a job and they're just like, do whatever and we're gonna pay you. So you're just like, you know, there's like no job description.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's
Like
chaos.
imagine the chaos it's gonna bring. Like how much money is everybody gonna, you know, how much money is that company going to bring in?
Right.
You know, it's the term is like too many chiefs and not enough Indians type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you
Mm-hmm.
have that chaos, but you need that structure, you need that order, and that's why like the man is ideally like a masculine man. Like they know they are to be head of household. You know what I mean? They set that structure. They lay that order. A lot of times they're the ones who are disciplining even the children and saying, hey, you cannot talk to your mother like that. We
Right.
don't operate like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
they are that patriarchal figure. And that's a beautiful thing because the woman then feels loved and she feels supported.
Seen.
You know?
Exactly. Supported. Exactly. I think we see these roles so much in the family when you end up having a family, and like not only just nature teaches you this when that baby's out, like as far as supporting and sustaining that, the mother is the one that's feeding the baby, right? So there's already this dynamic, but who needs to protect the mother is, you know, the husband, the partner, the father. And I think this natural order is already built into our nature. So I think the way that we've gone so far from it and straight like it's a lot of the reasons why we have the issues and the problems we have in our society.
Yeah.
And of course, we need to modify this, and we need to, you know, it's unique to each person's lifestyles and choices and their awareness of themselves and all the, you know, the factors that they play, like we said, with siblings and stuff or whatever it is. I think the more you know yourself, the more you can incorporate that into your life. But
and that's a good conversation to have when you're dating someone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
what does that look like to you? How do you expect me to show up in the relationship?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, what's going to be my role? What's going to be your role? Like, what are you expecting of me? Like, those are things to talk about, you know, especially like early on before things get way too serious, because you might realize that I don't want that job.
Right.
I don't want that role that you're outsourcing for. I'm not a good fit. I'm not a good candidate. So you can still see yourself out. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you can go on to the next opportunity, and you might, you know, then you'll meet that person who you are exactly what they're looking for, type of thing. You know, so it's good to even just like have those conversations, have that discussions, especially before the relationship gets too serious and you're attached, and then codependence, and then you're in that. Because like when you spend so much time with someone, like, I don't know, we just like revert back to who we were, you know, who we are and who we were sometimes, like as children, or what was modeled to us and things like that. You know, so that's a big part of like also just like knowing yourself and how you want to show up in a relationship, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I think we covered a lot of points about relationship, about dating, about gender roles, about awareness of knowing ourselves, importance of intuition and like that time with yourself, the meditation, time with God, and so many things, all in the journey of self-awareness and becoming your best self and attracting your best partner as well. So I think we definitely have more conversations to be continued on this, and you know, I'm really glad that we were able to have this chat, and I just want to thank you for your time, and you know, all those who contributed to it as well. So
you too, it was fun.
All right, well, thanks everyone. Bye.